everyone, it's Jan with What You Make It, and I'm excited to get to share this card with you. Clearly this is one we wouldn't be doing mass produced, but I have been looking forward to working on it ever since I saw these two dies. They are from Poppy Stamps, and they are stained glass window dies that work with each other. And then when I saw the frosted film by Tim Holtz, my idea began to come together. And so I want to show you, walk you through it kind of step by step. It comes in, the frosted film comes in a roll, so you'll want to get a piece that is the right size for your window. And you'll notice I am attaching it to a piece of clear packaging and just using a credit card or a key card to kind of smooth it out and get all the bubbles out. And then to attach it, I'm running it through my Xyron Create a Sticker machine that makes it so that every bit of it on the back has some adhesive to it and will give you a really good attachment to it. So to begin with, you put it on the front side where the frosted film is, and then you'll want to just kind of rub it to get any extra little adhesive boogers, as I call them, away. And then you flip it over, and I found that matching the point, because you can see through it, but if you'll match the topmost point, it will be a little easier for you to get that on. And it's really easy to get those two things matched up. Now I'm going to do some Copic coloring, and I'm going to just run through this, but I'm going to give you a couple of tips. Because I've done several versions of this, I've learned from doing. So I found that the stained glass looked better if you started with a light color of ink and then picked another shade within that family that was darker. And I'm putting the colors on the screen here. It just somehow makes it more luminous, and when you just go with the strong color, it's too much. If you go with the lighter color, it's too little. It's not that I'm doing shading, I'm just layering color on. And try a couple of these. I actually drew some out just on paper and colored in just to see different color combinations if I would like it or not. Just wanted to have lights and darks, because obviously you've seen where I'm going with this. It actually is going to be a window on the card. So I just love how it turned out. I love that it's luminous. I love that you can see through it. I love the frosted nature of it. Before I found the frosted glass, I want to tell you I used glitter, and I just used some clear packaging tape on the back and then did some glitter. So if you can't find the frosted film, try the glitter. Now, the next thing that was really important was coming up with the stone. And you'll see I had lots of playtime on this one. Just trying to figure out how to make that brick pattern look like stone. And I also was playing around a little bit with the size. I ended up realizing that I needed a little bit taller than standard card, and ended up with a 6" by 4 1/4. Adding that extra ½ inch on the length of the card just made the proportion look a little bit better. And I can still get the brick impression all the way down because I've slit the top of my embossing folder, leaving about a ¼ inch on both sides. So I can put this watercolor paper that I'm misting with water up into the folder and actually run it through twice. So I'll show you I'm positioning it in the first place here, and then I'll run it through, pull it down, and just emboss the part that has not been embossed during that first run through. And I love being able to use my folders this way. Really opens up possibilities. So to turn this brick wall into more of a stone wall, I'm going to use distress stains and distress markers. And the colors primarily are iced spruce and weathered wood. Those two together actually make a really nice wintry gray. And then to do some detail work, I did pull in pumice stone and picket fence marker. I'm showing you black soot here as well, but I ended up not using it, but you might want it for some detail. To begin with, we want to start by making our paper really wet. It's watercolor paper. That's one of the reasons we want to use it. It's going to stand up to the wetting and re-wetting that we're going to do. Now, I'm kind of pointing out that you really only need to concentrate on the sides, but to begin with, you want to lay down some color. And this is the iced spruce. And you can see that it's giving me a nice gray tone. And what we're going to do is we're going to layer color here. So you'll see me putting color on, taking it off. What I am doing is I'm taking the blue shade, which is the weathered wood, and putting some out on my craft mat, and then I wet the paper down again, and now I'm using a brush and just brushing on some of that weathered wood, and I'm letting it be darker in some places and lighter in other, because we're wanting to create weathered stone like the outside of an old church. Now, I didn't dry it off between these layers. I put the weathered wood on, and now I'm going back in with iced spruce on top of it, and I'm dabbing it away again. So we just keep going back and forth. We're layering it. Once I put that layer on, now I'm coming back in with iced spruce again. And you can see it's this time, before I wipe it off, I dry it. And that actually kind of deactivates and lets the paper absorb some of it. So you're seeing that we're beginning to get some different tonality in the color. And I'm using the picket fence now to go in and add some of those highlights. We want to do that before we get too far. I love working with these stains because they are water activated. And so I sprayed the white picket fence and then just picked up some of the weathered wood and the ice spruce, and I'm putting it in splotches. So you begin to get that stone that is not the same color right next to each other. When you finally have it done, you want to give it a really good drying on the front and the back. And now I'm going to go and add some details, and I'm thinking lights and shadows. So I'm going to use pumice stone, and I'm going to just kind of put in the underneath sides, some dark places where on the embossing folder you can see here where there is kind of a space missing in the wall. I'm emphasizing that with the picket, not the picket fence, the pumice stone. Now it looks kind of scary, but this is why I'm telling you, you've got to be brave with this, because we're going to soften it with water, because it interacts with water. It will, we can soften it. Now, this is going to be probably the scariest thing that you see me do. I'm using the picket fence, and I'm actually trying to put in the grout lines. And when you first put it on, you really can't see it. But if you look up at the top of the screen there where I have already been working, you can see just how amazingly bright that picket fence is. But look what happens when I mist it with water again. It softens, and you can take a brush and rub over it and soften it and re-soften it until you get the look that you like. I love that we were able to turn a brick wall into a stone wall with these products. Really cool. When you go to this much trouble for the outside of the card, you also ought to pay attention to the inside of the card. So to make it as beautiful as the outside, I took one of the scriptures from Beautiful Blessings from Paper Tray ink and stamped it with Tuxedo black ink. And then I cut a window in just some packaging to use as a mask, because I have this stamp, I think it's a Studio Calico or Hero Arts lattice stamp. And I'm just going to kind of watermark it. I'm using Versamark ink, and because I put that mask down, it will only stamp inside that mask, so it's going to have a little bit of a reflection of the stained glass that's on the front. So I thought that would be a nice little way to dress up the inside of the card. And I'll show you how I did that little bird here in a minute, but wanted to get this stamping done before we moved on to building the card. So now that I have the stained glass done, it's time to trim it down, and you want to leave about 1/4 of an inch all the way around so that you have something to attach it to your card with. And I started on the back of my stone wall and used one of the frames. I'm going to need 3 frames to complete this because I'm going to kind of build out the front of the card. In case you think that I am using an X-Acto knife on my mat, I'm not. I have that little black mat underneath it, but I realized it sure looked like I was doing that on my craft mat, and that would just be horrible. So just kind of dry fit it, trim it, make sure you've got it where you want it, and then use your stone wall piece to draw the opening for your card base. Now we're going to attach our stained glass window to the front of the card, and I'm using some glossy accents to do that. I found that putting the stained glass down and laying the card down onto it actually was the easiest way to get it positioned exactly how I wanted it. And now I'm going to use the first of those 3 windowsills or frames, and I'm going to put one on the inside just to finish that out really nicely so you don't see any of the cut edges. And then I will turn over, and I'm going to put the first one onto the stone wall, and that will help us finish that edge. I'm going to pop the stone wall up on some dimensionals. I'm using some clear pop dot adhesive kinds of things. That just gives us some dimension between the outside frame. You know, a building, if you're looking into it, there's a little bit of distance between those. And then I want to build up that frame a little bit, so I'm using some pop dots and just dimensional and cutting them down to size so that I can get them all lined up. And now we're ready to start doing some decorating. So I started by creating a lot of greenery in lots of different colors. I used punches and dies. These are 2 Impression Obsession dies that create some really nice greenery, and I just created lots of it. And then I also wanted some berries, and to do that I used a 1/4 inch punch and then this little flower punch, colored some cardstock to make the color I wanted, and punched out a bunch of those flowers. Now here's how I got them all rolled up and tiny. You can see I misted them, and then I put them onto a mouse pad and used my stylus to just go around in a circle. These 2 little birds are so cute. They're also Impression Obsession stamps and dies. They're of 2 little chickadees, and I wasn't sure at this point how I was going to use them, but I knew I was going to use them. And so I went and looked at a chickadee online. That's a great idea to have a reference when you're getting ready to do something. And I decided to use my Copics to just add a little bit of that yellow like the image on the internet had. I'm using Y32 and then 2 or 3 shades of warm gray. And I'm just kind of blending them in. You'll notice that I'm not using the little circling motion because I was kind of trying to imitate feathers. By the time I blended everything back and forth so many times, kind of lost that feathery look. But to kind of mute some of my coloring, I used the colorless blender, and that kind of made things softer. If you don't like the way something's going, go grab your colorless blender. It's a great corrective tool. So when I had finished coloring the birds, I did put a little distress stain on the greenery just to give it a little bit of dimension and color. And then I just began to build my garland, and I'm going to let this go in fast motion, put you some music on, and you can just kind of watch the process. I'm fluffing it up, and I'm only putting glossy accents or glue at the very tip because I want it to be very dimensional and fluffy. So enjoy watching the process. I love the dimensional effect of the liquid applique that you get with snow. But for the base of my window, I decided to use Flower Soft. And this is Flower Soft glue. And I thought it would, I wanted to kind of build it up in the corner like it had drifted. And I didn't really feel like the liquid applique would do that. So I decided to use some of the Flower Soft. And you see, you just kind of fluff it up. I think it works better if you put it in a different container than the one it comes in. So I have it in a little bin there. And you can just build layer upon layer and just make your drift look the way you want it to. And it'll dry in about 30 minutes. So work on it and then let it sit aside. To put my little chickadee on there, I built up some layers of foam tape, but I also added a little glue before I put my little chickadee down in the window, and just let him sit in there, little cutie patootie that he is. I just think he looks so cute, like he's nestled in the church window. So on the inside, I told you that and I think I've actually shown you that I did another little bird for down there, and I am just putting a touch of greenery so it looks like he has a little place to rest as well, and added the little pieces of greenery just like I did on the garland by just gluing the very base of it and then keeping him fluffed up. Popped the second little chickadee up on some dimensionals and added a couple of berries to his greenery as well. You know, when you're doing a card like this, you might as well go all out on the details, right? I love how it turned out. That's a sweet little bird, and I hope that you've had fun. There's lots of techniques in this. Maybe you don't want to go to the trouble of making something this detailed, but hopefully you learned something. In the meantime, have a blessed holiday season, and I'll be back with another project soon.